Hey guys, my name is Rick Stone. Welcome to my video course on starting seeds indoors. I'm really glad to have you here and I'm excited about it. My wife and I have been gardening for about 18 years now, and over those 18 years our garden has grown from just a few hundred square feet to where now we're about 1,200 square feet of garden. We have a big beautiful flower bed up in the front that we love to plant so that it looks like a city park. You know how they really get fancy, and my wife loves to be able to make it look that way. Over the years, as our garden has grown and our skills have grown, the number of plants that we had to buy to plant both our vegetables and our flowers has continued to increase. And then a few years ago we started gardening year-round, which means in our vegetable garden we have things available for us to eat 365 days of the year. And so that demands that we have a lot of plants available, from anything from tomatoes to broccoli to all the different flowers that we grow. In fact, as I was putting together this course, I got thinking about it, and so I made a list. So here's the list right here. So this is a list of everything that we are going to plant this year in our garden and how many of each that we're going to need to grow. So I'm not going to go through the whole list. That'd take us forever, but you can see we've got everything from tomatoes to cantaloupe to parsley, marigolds, geraniums, cosmos, 4 o'clocks. If you really want to look at the list, go ahead and pause the video and you can look at the list and see exactly what it is. If you go through and add up all those totals, that's over 400 plants. And some years it's 450 plants that we have to come up with to put into our garden. So if you figure they average about $1 a piece, that could be pretty pricey. And that was part of our inspiration for wanting to start growing our own seeds. So the other thing, if we go back to the list, you can see all of the different things we grow, things like bok choy and tatsoi. Nobody even knows what those are, besides having a nursery grow those. 2 of the varieties of tomatoes that we love to grow every year are both heirloom varieties that none of the growers in our area grow at all. All 3 of the broccoli varieties that we grow are unique. One of them is an heirloom seed, and again, the nurseries don't grow those. And then the other thing about broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower, we grow those in the spring and we also grow them in the fall. Well, they're always available in the springtime in the nurseries, but there are very few nurseries that actually grow those kind of things for the fall time. The other thing is a lot of our flower varieties that we like, we love 4 o'clocks, which is an old-fashioned flower. And I've never seen 4 o'clocks in a nursery. I may be wrong, they may be out there, but not in the volume that we plant them. We sometimes plant 20 or 30 plants, and we can't get them in a nursery, and so we have to grow them here. And then there's, varieties of zinnias that we like that aren't available at nurseries. And so it was kind of a combination of the fact that we needed so many plants that it was starting to cost us $400 or $500 a year to buy all of the plants that we needed, and then kind of our quirky experimental gardening fanaticism that we have. The combination of those two is why we really started planting our own seedlings indoors. So we kind of started this adventure about 12 years ago. My first time through was an absolute failure. I think of the 20 or 30 plants that I put in, I think maybe 3 of them actually made it out to the garden, if that. So I kind of had to go back to the drawing board. I wish I had had a course like this that kind of gave me the basics, but I kind of had to learn it on my own, and I finally found some courses that were taught by Utah State University that helped me learn how to do it, and now we're to the point to where, for example, last year 100% of the vegetables that we grew in our garden came from seedlings that we planted ourselves, and about 75 or 80% of the flowers that we planted in our garden came from seedlings that we grew. We did buy 1 flat of petunias, and we bought some geraniums and some fuchsia last year, but beyond that, everything that we planted in our flower bed, and I'll show you some pictures when we kind of start talking about flower beds a little bit. I'll show you some pictures of our flower bed, but all the plants that we put into our flower beds this year came from starts that we did in our own. And so it makes it a lot more economical, because this flower bed, to make it look decent, it needs 200 starts at least, for it to look good in the summertime. And so that can be pretty pricey. And we also kind of like those fun varieties. So That's what got us started, and that's where we're going with this course. I want to teach you how to do that. There's some basics that we're going to cover. You know, really, ultimately, what do you need? You need a container, you need some soil, and you need a light. Okay, those are the basics of seed starting, and we'll cover that. And then there's lots of other, you know, periphery things that we can bring in, heat mats and the types of lights and timers and seed starting shelves and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we'll go over all of that, but really the basics are a container, some soil, and a light. So we'll cover all of that. So we're going to break the course into 5 different sections. And those sections are, the first section we're going to cover all of the containers and the options for the containers. So we'll spend time talking about that. So the second section that we're going to cover, we'll talk about the soil that we plant our plants in. So we'll talk about the different types of seedling mixes that are available out there and, you know, what the advantages and disadvantages of each of those is. The third section, we're going to talk about how to care for your seedlings as they're growing. We'll talk about watering, we'll talk about lights, we'll talk about fertilizers and potential problems that you might have, you know, damping off and different things like that, and what you can do to prevent those types of problems. So we'll talk about all of that kind of care issues. Then the fourth section, we'll talk about timing. So if you want pansies ready for your garden in the middle of March, then you need to start those pansies in the middle of January if you really want to have them up and ready to go that time of year. But if you want watermelons for your garden, you don't want to put those in any more than maybe 2 or 3 weeks before you're ready to transplant them out, because watermelons and squashes and things like that don't transplant well. So you want just a nice small compact plant. So we'll talk about all those different timing issues and how to deal with that. And then in the last section, we'll actually talk about the seeds. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about the heirloom or open pollinated varieties versus the hybridized varieties. Now, we're not going to spend any time talking about seed collection in this class. That's, you know, that it would take an entire class on its own for that. But we are going to talk about the different types of seeds, how you plant them, and then we're also going to talk about how to care for your seeds. That's where we're going in this course. I hope you join us, and I hope we have a lot of fun. I'll be willing to answer questions at any time. If we have a question that keeps popping up, the same type of question, I'll go ahead and add a segment to the course for that question. So please feel free to message me and ask questions in the comment section, and let's get started.